Welcome back to Legitimate Targets, everybody. I hope you're all having a great day. On today's episode, we are going to be breaking down the absolutely shocking, groundbreaking revelations that have come out over the past 24 hours surrounding the political assassination of Charlie Kirk and how they tie to Israel. Because, oh boy. Now, yesterday, as you know, I did an episode where I discussed what were then theories about what I thought was going on behind the scenes, about how I thought there was possibly a war brewing between Charlie Kirk and Israel, the state of Israel, Netanyahu, the Zionist organizations, the Hasbara agents. And because of that, he was threatened. He feared for his life. And maybe as a result of all of the weird inconsistencies we had in the official story, that there was something much bigger to what was actually being told to us. Now, today, I come to you with, honestly, the amount of information I have for you today is insane, so I just want to jump right into it. But let me just give you a brief overview. Netanyahu went on U.S. primetime television 2 times last night. First to say Islamist extremists were behind the attack. A second time to say that Israel didn't do it, I didn't do it. And he read a letter from Charlie Kirk, which claimed that Charlie loved Israel so much, he wrote this love letter to Israel. But it turns out that letter was fake. Candace Owens came out and said it was fake and called on Netanyahu to publish the full letter, the real letter. He hasn't done that yet. Why the hell is he even coming on U.S. television? I don't know. In addition to that, we had Tucker Carlson come out and expose some of the groundbreaking, again, details surrounding what this war actually looked like behind the scenes, how it involved Donald Trump, how it involved Miriam Adelson, how it involved the Iran war, and Charlie being the only man brave enough to stand up to Trump and tell him to his face that this is a bad idea to go to war for Israel, and Trump's very furious response. In addition to that, we have a new article from the Gray Zone, which is really the biggest part of this whole story. I'm going to be talking about it at the end. But an anonymous source, a friend of Charlie, and a White House insider, Trump administration insider, went on record, I guess anonymously, to discuss that Israel wanted, Netanyahu called up Charlie personally to have Israel pay TPUSA millions of dollars to TPUSA to essentially buy him off. Charlie refused. There was this major war that ensued. Mossad was caught planting electronic devices on the vehicles of the White House Secret Service, emergency response cars. You had Trump in this Charlie Kirk altercation that was detailed further in this Gray Zone article. You had also further details about just how much Charlie really feared what was going on and how much he was being attacked behind the scenes and publicly by donors, by Zionist organizations, by Hasbara agents. And ultimately, it's beginning to paint a very weird, scary picture. What I'll say is that the only thing that we really owe to Charlie Kirk, the biggest thing we owe to Charlie Kirk at this point in time, is to unturn every single stone. And there are many stones that need to be unturned. There are many questions that need to be answered. There's many inconsistencies that need explaining. There's many lies that need to be corrected. And there's a lot of details that need to be exposed. And if you want to honor Charlie Kirk's legacy, you need to do what Candace Owens is doing right now. You need to do what Tucker Carlson is now doing, what they've both done over the past 12 hours. You need to do what the Gray Zone is doing, and you need to be willing to say something that might sound a little crazy, that might get some side eyes cast in your direction, because this is insane, but so was JFK, so was RFK, so was the USS Liberty, so was 9/11, so was Epstein, so was Michael Jackson, so was Princess Diana, and yes, so is this Charlie Kirk assassination. So without further ado, let's get into the story. I want to start off with some news that we did not get to cover last night that did come out. Not the biggest news in the story, but still major inconsistencies and weird events that need to be discussed, okay? First of all, we had the 2 patsies, okay? So the first patsy you saw arrested at the scene, in the grassy outdoor auditorium. He was yelling, shoot me, as the police took him away. Now, if you were not guilty, if you were not at all involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, why would you be yelling, shoot me, like you're Lee Harvey Oswald walking past the mafia, about to get shot? Why would you be saying that? What is the reason for that? I don't know, but it's very weird. It's also very weird to learn that the man on the left in that photo, which I'll show you again, is named George Zinn. George Zinn happens to be a man who committed a threat against the Salt Lake City Marathon several years ago when he threatened to bomb it. He emailed the organizers of the Salt Lake City Marathon and said, do you need assistance placing bombs at the finish line of the marathon? Now, if you ask me, George Zinn is the perfect character to blackmail. Or he already had, he was already compromised enough. He maybe had threats from above that he would face some sort of punishment if he did not comply, if he did not cause this scene that ended with him getting arrested, getting hogtied, carried out by his arms and legs as all the police, all of the attendees were focused on him. All the iPhones were focused on him. All the cameras were focused on him. All of the people, all of the police, all of the FBI, everyone was focused on George Zinn. Now, George Zinn is a guy that could be, he's very malleable, clearly, if he, had a criminal record such as this, where he was threatening acts of terrorism in the past against the Salt Lake City Marathon. But that's not all about George Zinn. We also have this interesting video of George Zinn. I'll show it to you right now. Where he does this weird 9/11 memorial promotional piece. It's a video you can watch on my Twitter. It has 5 million views now. I uploaded it today. So he's speaking here about how when he recalled the moment he saw the Twin Towers fall, he immediately knew Al-Qaeda was responsible for the 9/11 terror attack. Immediately, of course. That's George Zinn. So what is going on here? This is real, by the way. You can find the video on YouTube. This George Zinn was a marathon bomber, suspect. He didn't bomb it, but he threatened to. He's doing 9/11 memorial promotional pieces where he says, when I saw the Twin Towers fall, I immediately knew it was Al-Qaeda. What the hell is that? Okay, that's a red flag unto itself, big enough to raise serious questions. The media should be talking about it, but of course they're not. Now, let's keep going here because there's another individual. This individual was the second potential fall guy. I'll zoom out here so you can see him a little bit better. This individual on the right, I don't have his name, but what I can tell you about him is also very interesting based on what we know, which is virtually nothing. Okay. He was, detained. He was arrested by the police. He was brought into the headquarters for interrogation because on the day Charlie Kirk was assassinated, hours after he was assassinated, and by the way, after our friend here, George Zinn, was released and they said, he's not the suspect, he's just some crazy guy. The second guy was walking around the premises of where Charlie Kirk was assassinated nearby the university with a pellet gun. Why was he walking around with a pellet gun at a university hours after someone was assassinated? Now, that's not all. The pellet gun he was walking around with looked almost identical to the Mauser that was found in the wooded area near the school, which allegedly is the weapon of choice that the powers that be have selected for the suspect to have been using in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So he's carrying around a pellet gun that looked like the Mauser, the weapon that the FBI, the magically appearing gun that appeared in the woods. Okay. Very weird as well. All right. But of course, we have much more. So let's continue on here. Let's continue looking at the other odd details and inconsistencies. The FBI said that they had videos of the shooter. They initially claimed that they did not want to release these videos, but then they released some photos, which allegedly led to the positive identification of the shooter. This individual right here. Now, this doesn't add up because before they released these photos, the FBI said that the shooter was wearing full tactical gear. Okay. Only problem, he's not wearing tactical gear as he is presumably on the campus of the university in these photos. So what happened? Did he take off the tactical gear within like seconds or something? Is this before? Is this after the assassination? What is going on here? Why did they say he was wearing full tactical gear? Even former deputy director of the FBI was out on, I believe, Fox News just yesterday, and he said, yeah, that doesn't add up. That's very odd. So even, the FBI is admitting that doesn't add up. Now, the other thing is the FBI claimed that they found the gun in a wooded area. They found the gun in a wooded area. Okay, I have no problem with that story until, of course, we have these photos of the shooter not carrying a gun. Where did he carry the gun? Some people are saying that he carried the gun in his pants. I have a lot of doubt that this gun right here was carried in his pants. I mean, I don't see that. I don't see it being carried in his backpack. For a reason that I'll explain in a second. I mean, this was before we had the photo of the gun. I don't think this was being carried in his backpack or his jeans or anything like that. And no tactical gear. So how did the gun end up in the woods if he was not carrying it? Because if these photos were from before the shooting, I would imagine that he had the gun on him. If they were after the shooting, then I would imagine he would have been carrying it as well to go put it in the wooded area, as the authorities are claiming. Okay, but none of that was true. Where did he change his clothes? Why is he not carrying his gun if he went and hid it in the woods? Okay, now, this is we need to have some creative name for this. JFK had the magic bullet. 9/11 had the fireproof passport from Tower 1. Charlie Kirk has the magically appearing rifle with a planted scope. Now, why do I say planted scope? Because this is a bolt-action Mauser rifle. And a bolt-action rifle, the scopes need to be elevated off the surface of the barrel so you can actually use the bolt-action feature on the rifle. Now, this scope is not elevated at all. You can look at photos of Mausers with scopes all across the internet, and each one you're going to find is, with the scope mounted. Now, let's say that somehow this gun is usable, and maybe it's just the angle of the photo, and okay, Jackson, you're looking too much into things. Okay, I'll take your word for it. Maybe we're, creating problems where there aren't any. But if the claim is that because the shooter wasn't carrying the gun when he jumped off the rooftop. I showed you that yesterday. And in the photos, he's not carrying the gun. If the claim is that he disassembled the gun magically in seconds, he disassembled the gun and he somehow put it in his backpack or in his pants and he disassembled it within seconds. He took off the tactical gear within seconds. Or maybe this was all going on while the patsy was getting arrested. Why on earth did he put the scope back on the gun in its hiding spot in the woods while he's on the run and trying to, stash the gun and quickly, flee from the scene? Why would he put the scope back on? That literally makes no sense. So I'm saying the scope is planted for one of two reasons. I just explained both the reasons to you, and we have no real explanation for why this, any of that makes any sense. Okay. Another odd bit of this story that we learned over the past 24 hours is that the FBI director, Kash Patel, who, by the way, was flown into Utah today, they delayed the press conference by 24 hours so they could have Kash Patel there to tell us everything is okay and everything is solved. If you have any questions, sweep them under the rug, please, because we don't want to hear them. Kash Patel, who has like a 22-year-old model Israeli girlfriend, she's literally a model. I mean, I don't mean to be like overtly rude, but I don't think this guy is dating any Israeli models in a sane world where there aren't Mossad honeypots. His eyes are going in two freaking different directions. Crying out loud. So this guy is dating an Israeli Mossad honeypot. By the way, she worked at PragerU, and PragerU was the CEO of PragerU was literally a Mossad operative before she worked at PragerU. So you have the Zionist FBI director, and yes, he is a Zionist, who we now learn fired the FBI's lead agent at the Utah field office 2 weeks before the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Not indicative of any foul play necessarily, but when you add up all this stuff together, in addition with the stuff I covered on my episode yesterday, yes, I am beginning to ask questions. Then last night, we had the FBI come out before the press briefing, and they said that they claimed that foreign intelligence is now assisting in the investigation of Charlie Kirk. Which foreign intelligence? Why is foreign intelligence assisting in a domestic investigation of a domestic assassination where all suspects are expected to be, citizens of the United States? Why is foreign intelligence investigating this matter? Where were they investigating? Did they have boots on the ground in the United States? Were there Israeli foreign intelligence service, personnel at the scene investigate? Like, what is going on here? Which foreign intelligence services? Where were they investigating? What were they doing? Did they offer their services, or were they invited to participate by, well-meaning people in the United States? If they were invited to participate in this manhunt, who invited them? Okay, this is very odd. Why would foreign intelligence, the CIA, for all we know, wasn't, one of the main groups that was participating in this manhunt? It was the FBI, and it was regional police departments or sheriff's departments. Why on earth, let alone the CIA, why was a foreign intelligence agency involved in the investigation and the manhunt? I don't know, but I've got a big question about that. Another odd thing. 1 hour after the assassination took place, a private jet took off from Provo Airport. Provo Airport is 12 minutes away from the Utah Valley University campus. So it took off 1 hour after the assassination. Private jet, as you can see right here, this is the jet. And several minutes into the flight, it disabled its location monitoring system on the private jet. The jet happens to be owned by someone named Derek Maxfield, who is a wealthy donor to the Chabad Lubavitch of Utah. Very wealthy donor. He donated minimum hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Chabad Lubavitch of Utah, maybe millions. I don't have all the records. I see what I see. It's at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, okay? Now, there's some reasons this could be explained. If you are just randomly turning off your location monitoring radar system on a flight in, I believe, I forget what the exact phrase is, but like something like public airspaces, then yes, that is illegal. If you don't get approval, if you do it deliberately, that is a violation of FAA code. Now, if he was going over some area where maybe there's problems with radar routinely and it goes in and out and the service is bad with the radar, okay, that's explainable. The plane went to Arizona. It came back to Provo later that day. Maybe just a weird coincidence. I don't know. But, let's unturn all the stones, as I said at the start of this video, because that is an interesting thing that I think is worth noting here. Okay. Now, later on in yesterday evening, I put out a tweet, and this tweet was a joke about Israel's weird overreaction to this news. You had like all the Hasbara agents, all the Zionists, every Israeli politician, every Israeli minister, every Israeli activist and propagandist online. They're all saying how much they love Charlie Kirk, how much Charlie Kirk loved Israel, that they would never hurt Charlie Kirk. It was like a lot. In tandem with the first message from any world leader about the assassination being Netanyahu, he said, pray for Charlie Kirk. And then a few moments later, the day of the assassination, he said, I was talking to Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago, and I invited him to Israel. And I questioned, did he say no? when you invited him to Israel? Why were you talking to Charlie Kirk 2 weeks ago? Why'd you invite him to Israel when he's being attacked by all of the Zionist organizations and Zionist media outlets? We all saw it. Why were you talking to him as he's being attacked by all these Zionist groups and Zionist politicians? And Laura Loomer is saying that he stabbed Trump in the back for hosting Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith at TPUSA events. Why were you talking to him? And honestly, I don't know what Charlie Kirk said. Maybe he said, sure, I'll come kiss the wall again. But maybe he didn't. Okay, and what I'm going to show you in a few minutes leads me to believe that it's almost a certainty that he at least said, I'll think about it. I don't know if he said, no, I'm not going to come, but I would have serious suspicions if anyone told me with a straight face that they said, yes, of course, Charlie Kirk said he'd go to Israel. Okay, more on that later. So there's a lot of questions as to why there was this overreaction from all these Israeli personalities and politicians and world leaders. So I posted this. It's a fake tweet from Netanyahu. I edited it together and I said, this is not a real tweet, but it could be at this point. I want everyone to know Israel was not involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It is true that he told his friends and he feared we'd kill him. And we did, in fact, attack Charlie over the past few months for hosting Tucker Carlson, condemning the war in Iran and claiming Epstein was a Mossad agent. But that was the past. I've directed my entire government to tweet about their profound love for Charlie Kirk every 30 minutes for the next 5 days. I repeat, we were not involved. Now, it turns out that really wasn't all that crazy of a fake post to make. Because within several hours, Netanyahu decided to book himself 2 prime time slots on U.S. national television, on Fox News and on Newsmax. You know, audiences that would have really loved Charlie Kirk, up until the tragedy took place. He went out on Fox News and Newsmax, and I kid you not, after I made that fake tweet from Netanyahu, he went out and said that in the first video, Islamic extremists were responsible for, the violence. He's insinuating Islamic extremists were responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, when, by the way, no one was saying that. The FBI wasn't saying that. The sheriffs weren't saying that. Trump wasn't saying that. Journalists weren't saying that. No one was saying that, but he goes out and says this.
This is a worldwide problem. The people on the extremes, the Islamists, the radical Islamists, and their union with the ultra progressives, they often speak about human rights. They speak about free speech, but they use violence to try to take down their enemies. Whether it's President Trump, who's been almost assassinated twice, or they try to kill me here too, but they got Charlie Kirk, and it's just heartbreaking.
The Islamic extremists, they tried to kill Donald Trump. They tried to kill me here in Israel too, but they got Charlie Kirk. It's devastating. Which Islamic extreme? Who? We at this point, the FBI had no idea who killed Charlie Kirk. And he's coming out and saying like, oh, the Islamic extremists. Bitch, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? This is literally like a meme in 4K self-report. Then he comes out and says this right here. I kid you not, after I made that fake tweet from Netanyahu, he comes out and says, I want everyone to know Israel did not assassinate Charlie Kirk.
Before I let you go, I want you to address one thing, and it's just the absurdity of it. Some of the internet rumors that somehow Israel is behind the Charlie Kirk murder, and I don't believe it for 1 second, but I want you to make a statement. It's so absurd.
That's insane. That's insane. Israel also changes the.
Look at that. She's got her stupid fucking yellow ribbon on. Zionist approved agent to ask the question that was already scripted on the primetime news slot that Bibi Netanyahu booked for himself to come out and address the very strong, convincing, suspicious narratives that Israel may have had something to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And listen to what he had to say.
The orbit of the moon, Israel pushes the sun. I mean, the whole thing it's not only insane, I think it's so absurd, so stupid and so ridiculous. You can't believe that people are saying this. They just found the perpetrator. They'll get to the bottom of this. But they go, they have no limits. When you hate Jews.
Again, this is before, so this was last night before the FBI said that they had the perpetrator. This was before Trump said it this morning that they had the suspect. This was before anyone in the U.S. said that they had the suspect. How does Netanyahu know that they got the perpetrator? Privately, I guess they had the perpetrator because they wanted to delay the press briefing for 24 hours so Kash Patel could get to the scene of the crime and be at the press briefing. But, this was not a public thing, but Netanyahu already knew it.
When you hate the Jewish state, you're willing to say anything and promote all these absurd rumors. And by the way, they're willing to kill us all the time. I mean, that's what they're doing. And over the centuries, when Jews, especially in the Middle Ages, the horrific Middle Ages, the worst things were said about Jews you couldn't possibly believe. We were poisoning the wells. We were drinking the blood of Christian children. You name it. I mean, these things, that continued actually.
You name it. We were cutting off the foreskin of little boys. We were shaving the sides of coins. You name it. We were genociding the people in Gaza. Okay, well, obviously Israel did not assassinate Charlie Kirk. Some Israelis were, making some murals for Charlie Kirk, so obviously they did not assassinate them. It's very clear now. Beautiful mural. Obviously, there was, no harm, no foul, none like that. There was also a weird mural, a very weird mural. Let me see if I can find it right now, of Donald Trump in a face-to-face hug with Charlie Kirk, and they were in front of a U.S. flag and an Israeli flag. Here you go. This was also very weird. I presume this was put up in Israel as well. Yeah, Shlomo Pearl, it says at the bottom. Can't make this stuff up. So, yeah, you guys, Netanyahu said that Israel didn't do it. He said Islamist extremists did it. The Hasbara agents all tell you that Israel loved Charlie and Charlie loved Israel. They've got murals of Charlie. Everyone knows that Israel is not involved. Everyone knows. Again, anyone find it a bit odd that the prime minister of a country halfway across the world who's in the middle of 7 different bombing campaigns on the civilians of said countries and is also in the middle of a domestic political crisis, which will definitely end up with him and his wife in prison at some point in time, is taking the time out of his day to not only tweet about Charlie Kirk, not only, send these messages, not only direct all his Hasbara agents to tweet and post about this, but do 2 primetime news slots on Fox News and Newsmax where he said it wasn't me, it was Islamist extremists. Anyone else find that a little bit odd? I do. What is the Shakespeare quote? Methinks the lady doth protest too much. Something to that effect. I think that's exactly what's going on right now. But listen. Netanyahu told us that they found the perpetrator. He, of course, announced it before anyone else. Also not weird, but case closed. It was just some random Antifa kid or something. Case closed. Don't ask any more questions. Anyone who's telling you not to ask questions right now is lying to your fucking face. They are lying to you. They don't want the truth. They don't want what is in the best interest of the legacy of Charlie Kirk, honoring Charlie Kirk, the family of Charlie Kirk, the friends of Charlie Kirk. And by the way, I was not a friend of Charlie Kirk. I am an outside observer. I've never met Charlie Kirk. I don't know him personally. I'm looking at this all as an outside observer who is very critical of his policy on Israel up until recently when he condemned the war in Iran publicly. And I said that was a good thing that he did that. So I'm a full outside observer with really no skin in the game here. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this. And I think it is absolutely fascinating that there are so many inconsistencies in this story. I'm not a guy who covers mass shootings ever. I don't ever cover this stuff. Of course, it's tragic that this happens, but I don't spend my time looking into conspiracies about this stuff. I think it's very weird that all these inconsistencies, all these red flags right now. I think let's just go through what we knew up until the Candace tweets, the Tucker tweets, and the Gray Zone article, what we knew thus far. He used to be an Israel loyalist. He feared Israel would kill him. He started mildly criticizing Israel recently. Epstein was a Mossad, no war with Iran on behalf of Israel. He let Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith speak at his events. Zionist media started to attack him thereafter. Netanyahu calls Charlie Kirk about visiting Israel 2 weeks before the assassination takes place. We don't know what was said. I find it a bit odd that that happened at the same time Zionist media and all these organizations were attacking him. Around that time, the FBI fired their chief of the Utah FBI field station. 48 hours before the assassination takes place, Ben Shapiro is told to his face by Charlie Kirk that we need to start questioning Israel, like we questioned COVID and Russia and Russiagate and, all these other things that we are questioning. Why can't we question what's going on with Israel? Ben Shapiro, by the way, went out on, I believe, Fox News later that day and said that there's no place in the Republican Party for anyone who thinks that Israel is involved in some child rape ring and Israel is dragging America into all these endless wars. So that was an egregious attack against Charlie Kirk after the show in the morning. We also have Laura Loomer, who said that Kirk was backstabbing Trump for hosting Tucker and Dave Smith at the TPUSA events. Then the assassination takes place. Charlie gets shot in the jugular from 200 yards away. Police arrest the patsy, claiming to be a shooter. Patsy says, shoot me, as he's being dragged away. The actual shooter flees without a trace, or maybe he did leave a trace in a wooded area. I don't know. Netanyahu does his tweets. The Jerusalem Post is the first media outlet across the world to confirm the death of Charlie Kirk, another weird thing. Private jet takes off. We talked about that. Police arrest the second suspect with a pellet gun. We talked about that. That happened a little bit later in the day. FBI claims they have photos of a shooter. Rifle found in a nearby wooded area. Scope was planted. FBI says the shooter was wearing tactical gear, but in the photos, he wasn't carrying that gun, wasn't wearing tactical gear. How'd he get the gun to the wooded area? That's odd. Zionists go on social media blitz about Kirk. Netanyahu goes on media blitz about Kirk. Netanyahu says Islamists were behind it. Then he says Israel was definitely not behind it. FBI says foreign intelligence was assisting in the manhunt. That's already crazy enough on its own. But that's not even the tip of the iceberg, because the dam that was holding up all of the behind-the-scenes war between Israel and Charlie Kirk and Trump and Netanyahu was broken tonight when Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and this anonymous individual in the Gray Zone came out and exposed exactly what was happening. Or at least I should say they began to expose exactly what was happening. Let's get into it. Candace Owens comes out and says that the letter... First, we'll start with this. Candace Owens came out and said that Charlie Kirk was undergoing a spiritual transformation and under intense pressure before his assassination. Now, I should remind you all that she said this in her farewell video, her in remembrance video for Charlie Kirk. She said this about 10 seconds after she was talking about Charlie Kirk's policy on Israel, his thoughts on Israel, and that she always believed that Charlie Kirk would come around to her position on Israel. Then she says, he was going through a spiritual transformation. Okay, so she was obviously referring to Israel when she said he was going under spiritual transformation and he was under intense pressure. Who else would he have been under intense pressure from? No one except for, presumably, Israel. Then we had Candace Owens go out and say this: It is 100% true that Charlie opposed war with Iran and was fighting with his donors over Israel, as Tucker Carlson just shared on Megyn Kelly's show. This is why I'm discomforted by the intentional lie by omission that Bibi told on Fox News about the letter Charlie wrote him. Lie? What lie? Let's take a look at this. Candace Owens tweeted out, Bibi Netanyahu lied about the contents of the letter Charlie wrote to him in May. It was a lie by severe omission, and it is not sitting right with me. He held the letter in his hand and propagandized it. He should publish the entire thing, she says. Bibi brought up the letter himself and severely misrepresented the contents of it. I'm calling on him to publish the entire letter. For some reason, that seems to have sent you on an emotional spiral because you lie like him. She's talking to Laura Loomer here, who said that Kirk was backstabbing Trump just a few weeks ago over Israel. I see you for exactly what you are, she finishes off. And then lastly, Candace writes, no show today because I'm feeling deeply angry and it's personal. I intend to destroy every lie, so be sure to peddle them very carefully. So basically, Netanyahu went out and he read this letter from Charlie and said, oh my God, I love Israel so much. I love you, Netanyahu, as this war is going on behind the scenes. And maybe he did say some of those things. Maybe he said, like, we have a long history. I've come and kissed the wall before. I've been here. I've been there. I thought Israeli society was beautiful. But whatever Netanyahu said, Charlie Kirk apparently did not write in that letter. And it was fake, fraudulent. Netanyahu booked himself 2 primetime media slots on U.S. national television to lie to our faces about what Charlie Kirk wrote him in a personal letter 24 hours after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He did this. Why on earth is he lying about what Charlie Kirk wrote him in a personal letter 24 hours after he was assassinated on U.S. national television primetime slot? Why on earth? He had the letter right in front of him. He was not reading off the letter. He was reading bullshit, lies. Why is that happening? Question it. You also had Tucker Carlson come out and help break the dam today. Tucker Carlson in his morning newsletter wrote, Charlie knew risking another Middle East forever war would not serve our country. So he visited the Oval Office to tell the president just that. He didn't scream. He wasn't disrespectful. He calmly made his case. Charlie knew many of Turning Point USA's financial backers would be furious at him for standing against neocon foreign policy, but he did it anyway because he believed it was right. Tucker also followed that up with a conversation with Megyn Kelly where he said the same thing. Take a listen.
He was one of the only people, truly one of the only people to go to the president whom he loved. He loved Donald Trump, like personally as well. And I think the president really loved him in a real way. But he was one of the only people to go to the Oval Office and say, sir, I totally understand and think Iran's really bad, but a war with Iran is not, is something that could really hurt our country. Boy, that was an unpopular position. He didn't need to express it. Oh, of course. And he did it again. He didn't have some weird agenda. He wasn't.
And by the way, keep in mind, Israel groomed Charlie Kirk from when he was a very young man. This is essentially biting the hand that feeds, except it's biting the hand that groomed him for years, paid him off, tried to buy him off, all this crazy stuff. You'll learn in a few minutes that their efforts to buy him off the last time didn't work so well. But yeah, they were with each other their whole life. Charlie went to Israel so many times. He knew Netanyahu. He kissed the wall. He did all their propaganda for years. And then he said, not anymore. And then he gets assassinated and there's all these weird things happening.
Mad at anybody. He was for his country and he was for doing the right and wise and difficult thing. And he said that. He went to the Oval Office to say that. He took massive abuse from his own donors, which is also something that you don't see people. And he loved his donors. It wasn't a hostile thing, but they had a different view. A lot of them, not all, but a lot. And they expressed it to him in a very intense way. I know because he showed me. And he said, look, I understand your perspective. This is my perspective, and we're going to do what we think is the right thing, the wise thing.
In that way, too, he was the voice of young people. There are no young people in the country anymore supporting this war and wanting Israel to continue its bombing campaign. That's just the truth. Look at the polls. And he was in touch with them. And even where his own opinion may have differed from their opinion, he felt like he owed it to them to bring their message to the sitting president of the United States. I mean, that's what's been snuffed out.
Well, as he has been, unfortunately.
Yeah. This is not sitting well with me at all, actually. This is not actually sitting well. It all makes sense, but it's a very bad feeling that it's leaving. Bad taste in my mouth. Now, here is the pinnacle of this story. Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil, who are very plugged up in the DC scene and great investigative journalists, I think the best. I think that if anyone deserves a Pulitzer Prize, it's them, and it's for this article I'm about to show you. They just exposed this, and I'm honestly speechless. When it was sent to me, I didn't even know what to say. I was like, my worst fears, my worst suspicions about what could have happened to Charlie Kirk. I'm not going to say this article proves anything beyond a reasonable doubt, but I'm saying this. Well, I'll let you judge for yourself. How about that? Charlie Kirk refused Netanyahu funding offer, was frightened by pro-Israel forces before death. A Trump insider and longtime friend of Charlie Kirk tells the Gray Zone how the assassinated conservative leader's turning point on Israeli influence provoked a private backlash from Netanyahu's allies that left him angry and afraid. The source said anxiety spread within the Trump administration after an apparent Israeli spying operation was uncovered. Okay, so this is two stories in one. Trump White House spying, Israeli spying on the Trump White House, and some very, very important details about the Charlie Kirk behind-the-scenes war with Israel and Netanyahu. I'm not going to read every word in this story. You can go read it for yourself, but we are going to address the most important points. Charlie Kirk rejected an offer earlier this year from Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to arrange a massive new infusion of Zionist money into his Turning Point USA organization. That alone is like, wow. Wow. If all the other red flags did not trip you up, this is all you need, okay? You have this individual who leads the youth organization, the youth infrastructure for MAGA, who, by the way, was going to run for president one day. Everyone knew that and very well could have won the presidency. He controlled and built the entire infrastructure of MAGA, of youth, of Turning Point in foreign countries. You name it. Charlie Kirk was essential, not just to Trump, not just to the MAGA movement and its future, but also to the future of the United States and where our country was headed. And not only was he having problems with Israel, not only was he unsettled by Israel, but he literally was refusing their money at this point because of what was going on. The source told the Gray Zone that the late pro-Trump influencer believed Netanyahu was trying to cow him into silence as he began to publicly question Israel's overwhelming influence in Washington and demanded more space to criticize it. In the weeks leading up to the assassination, Kirk had come to loathe the Israeli leader, regarding him as a bully. Kirk was disgusted by what he witnessed inside the Trump administration, where Netanyahu sought to personally dictate the president's personnel decisions and weaponize Israeli assets like billionaire donor Miriam Adelson to keep the White House firmly under its thumbs. According to Kirk's friends, who also enjoyed access to President Trump and his inner circle, Kirk strongly warned Trump last June against bombing Iran on Israel's behalf. Charlie was the only person who did that, they said, recalling how Trump barked at him in response and angrily shut down the conversation. The source believes the incident confirmed in Kirk's mind that the president of the United States had fallen under the control of a malign foreign power and was leading his own country into a series of disastrous conflicts. By the following month, Kirk had become the target of a sustained private campaign of intimidation and free-floating fury by wealthy and powerful allies of Netanyahu, figures he described in an interview as Jewish leaders and stakeholders. He was afraid of them, the source emphasized. Okay? What do you want me to say? Do I have to spell it out for you? Are you retarded? Do you not see what's happening? I was on a TikTok live a few minutes ago and someone said, but Jackson, the guy that they found for the assassination was not an Israeli. What do you want? You want him to wear an Israeli flag and go assassinate Charlie Kirk? Do you want him to wear you want him to wear like a lapel pin, one of those stupid yellow lapel pins on his coat or something? You want him to wear like an IDF arm patch? What do you expect? You expect Ben Gvir to be watching over him with his kippah as he shoots Charlie Kirk? Like, are you that stupid? Do you think Mossad is that stupid? It was 10 months ago or so when Mossad did the interview with 60 Minutes where they said, we view the entire world as a theater and we are the puppeteers that create our magic stories and we create our illusions and we make you believe the unbelievable. And if you happen to question it, you are a conspiracy theorist who will be canceled. You know, this is what they do. You're being force-fed information that overwhelmingly suggests that there is something extremely suspect going on here. And if you are still saying you don't want to try that, you don't want to see what's going on, you don't want to believe it with your own eyes, I'm sorry, but you're a part of the problem in this country. If you are saying you can't ask questions about this, Charlie was one of the most famous political commentators in the entire world, let alone America. He had international sway. Turning Point was international. He was assassinated 2 days ago. The FBI couldn't find the killer for 48 hours. You have the Israeli prime minister saying it wasn't me, it was Islamists. And then they're going to tell you it was some Antifa kid or something, who online freak who and then they have the patsies and the gun and please tell me you are not that stupid to believe this. Please tell me that Americans are not this stupid. Kirk was 18 years old when he launched TPUSA in 2012. From its inception, his career was propelled by Zionist donors. Okay, I'm not going to read all of this. Of course, you know, he went to Israel. He was very close with them. But he began to shift his opinion recently. And, you know, close with Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson, hosting them. Okay, this video was super viral where Tucker went totally off on Israel and Bill Ackman. And, people didn't like that. His donors didn't like that. Okay. Talk about what Candace Owens was saying. So following Charlie Kirk's hosting of Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith at the TPUSA event, which, by the way, Loomer said was backstabbing Trump because it was anti-Israel that he did that, Kirk was bombarded with infuriated text messages and phone calls from Netanyahu's wealthy allies in the U.S., including many who had funded TPUSA. According to his longtime friend, the Zionist donors treated Kirk with outright contempt, essentially ordering him to fall back in line. He was being told what you're not allowed to do, and it was driving him crazy. Kirk's friend recalled, the conservative youth leader was not only alienated by the hostile nature of the interactions, but frightened by the backlash. The friend's account dovetails with those of multiple right-wing commentators with access to Kirk, including, of course, Harrison Smith, who said 1 month ago that Charlie Kirk feared that he was going to be killed by Israel if he stepped out of line. That was 1 month ago, before the assassination. Okay, so they mentioned that here. This was 48 hours before the assassination. You can take a listen to what Charlie Kirk said to Ben Shapiro face to face.
Charlie, we've pushed back against the media on COVID, on lockdowns, on Ukraine, on the border. So like, maybe we should also ask a question. Is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything.
Look at Ben's fucking stupid face here. Charlie, you're not saying this, are you? you know what's going to happen. According to Kirk's longtime friend, Kirk's resentment of Netanyahu and the Israel lobby was spreading within Trump's inner circle. In fact, they said the president himself was terrified of Netanyahu's wrath. Don't just gloss over that one. This source says that Trump is terrified of Netanyahu's wrath and feared the consequences of defying him. The president of the United States. Talk about burying the lead. I mean, I know this is an important story, but I think this deserves two stories. During the past year, the Trump insider was told by contacts in the White House that the Secret Service had caught Israeli government personnel placing electronic devices on its emergency response vehicles on two separate occasions. Now, that's nothing new. That happened to Boris Johnson. Israel did it to Boris Johnson. Israel did it to the Germans, I believe. Israel did it to Trump in his first term in 2019. So, yeah, this is very weird. Now, okay, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to get to here because we've covered everything else. But is that not all extremely troubling and suspicious? I'll let you guys be the judge of it, okay? But all I'm going to say is you're not crazy if you're asking these questions. You're doing exactly what Charlie would have wanted you to do, as you heard in that conversation with Ben Shapiro. He said, don't you think we should be questioning Israel? I'm doing it right now. If you're watching this far into the video, you're doing it too. This is exactly what he said 48 hours before he was assassinated, what we need to be doing. Okay? I'm sickened by this tragedy. I'm sickened by the people who are still celebrating this. They have no grasp on what God has given us, what human life is. I'm sickened by that. I'm sickened by the tragedy. I'm sickened by how this was handled by the FBI. But most of all, I'm sickened by what was going on behind the scenes and what may have really been behind this. And if not that, I'm sickened by the fact that Israel is exploiting this because they know that now that Charlie Kirk is dead, this rift between the U.S., in particular, the youth of the MAGA movement, the Republican youth, this rift between them and Israel will, I guess, never be fully realized. And at the least, Israel is using the assassination of Charlie Kirk. They're exploiting this to try and mend relations that had already been shredded into a million pieces and flushed down the toilet. Okay? At the least, that's what is happening right now. Worst case scenario, though, there's something very sinister going on, and Israel was involved in this. I'll let you be the judge. I have my opinions and theories, that of which you know. I'm not stupid. Seen this before. But I do think it's weird. I think it's very weird. I think it's weird that JFK's assassin was never found. I think it's weird that RFK's assassin was never found. I think it's weird that the Israeli company that was creating the drugs that were administered to Michael Jackson was never held accountable. I think it's weird that Princess Diana's murder was treated as a simple random car crash. I think it's weird that the Epstein files have not been released and probably never will be. I think it's weird that, so many years, 24 years, almost my entire life, I'm almost 26 years old, we still don't have the truth about 9/11. And we're supposed to believe that there was some fireproof passport at Tower 1. It's your duty as an American to question these things. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I continue to pray for the family, the friends, the loved ones of Charlie Kirk in this difficult time. Thank you.